Hi guys, Claudia Boleyn here, and today's video is about hating female characters. Okay, so this is a topic which I hope will be relevant to those of you out there that are feminists, those of you out there that love to appreciate female characters in things and have female characters as your favourites. Automatically, me being the contrary person that I am, I will often, when I join a new fandom, I'll get into the fandom and I will notice there is a female character there which is despised. And at first I'll think, oh okay, this must be like the villain character. And the deeper I get into the fandom, the more I get into it, I realise that actually this isn't a villain character, this is a perfectly ordinary character, but everyone hates her. And that's when the sort of feminists, like, protective instincts kick in, and I guarantee you, give me a few weeks and that character will be my favourite character in the whole show, just because I have to stick up for her because she's getting a bad rep. I know this is something that a load of feminists do. It's just like a natural protective instinct because it mirrors things that happen in the world, because you'll have like a male character do something which is even worse than or on a level with a female character, and yet the male character will still be adored and the female character will be absolutely hated and she's irredeemable and everyone just despises her. So this mirrors a thing that happens in real life, so that's why I feel so passionately about it in fiction. Before anyone says, why does it matter, it's fiction, like get back in the real world, I appreciate that, I understand I'm talking about a fictional topic here, but it is something which mirrors real life attitudes and I think it's worth exploring. So there's so many ways to get into this topic, but I thought to myself, is it misogynistic or sexist to hate a female character? Obviously, the answer to that is no. The reason I start with that is because people have asked me that before, usually anti-feminists saying, you know, you can't just love characters because they're women. That's true. I mean, you can technically do that, but, you know, that's not what I do. But no, it's not automatically sexist or misogynistic to hate a female character at all. Like, some characters are hateable, and in fact, I think sometimes it can be the sign of a really well-written female character that she's hated as a person, you know? But the problem is that so many of these fictional women which are, like, hated by people, if you actually look at the reasons why they're so hated, discounting some people's individual reasons, I get there'll be some people with individual reasons which make sense. But on the whole, these characters are often hated for parts of their personality which are tied with femininity and being women. A great example of this is Sansa Stark from Game of Thrones. So a lot of people absolutely despise Sansa, and if that's based on, I don't know, like some experience in life with someone similar to her or something, you know, that's fine, that's fine. But a lot of people just call her whiny, and they hate her because she acts like a typical teenage girl would. You know, obviously, I don't know if you watch Game of Thrones, but Sansa Stark is a character who's plunged into this dangerous political world where people die all the time. It's like a sort of fantasy genre slash... Why am I explaining? You know what Game of Thrones is, and if not, you can Google it. But Sansa Stark is a young girl, so she's a young teenager when this starts. She goes through some pretty bad stuff in her life, and it makes her upset, and she is not that sort of female character that wants to pick up a sword and fight someone. She's like most teenage girls would be in that situation. She gets upset about it, she has emotions which are sometimes silly, but then again, don't all teenagers have emotions that are sometimes silly? I certainly did. But people irrationally hate on her, so she's a great example of someone that people irrationally hate on for her feminine traits. I feel like when a female character is allowed to express real human emotion, like misery or you know, just misery or fear or something like that, automatically people just hate them on principle. Whereas if a man shows some sort of misery or fear, you get people more likely sort of thinking, oh wow, I love him, I love the fact that he's showing his vulnerability even though he's a man. And yeah, there's like a deeper issue there because with gender roles it can be really hard for men to show their emotions. I'm not against that at all. I love seeing male characters showing those emotions, I think it's fantastic. But there's a really different response with male characters and female characters. Now if you follow my channel you might know that, weirdly, my two favourite Game of Thrones characters are Sansa Stark and Cersei Lannister. Opposite ends of the spectrum there. A lot of people hate Cersei Lannister, and I think that's an example of fair enough. I think that's an example of people hating Cersei because she does some evil things. She's a nasty person, and when I say she's my favourite character, I mean that I find her fascinating and I'm intrigued by how she became what she is, and I find it kind of sad, but I do not condone her actions. That's what I mean by that. So hating a bad female character is fine, and actually hating any female character is fine. I'm not trying to control who you hate or who you like. I'm just trying to point out some sort of trends that I have noticed and that are slightly worrying. Now here's a problem I have And it really confuses me. And you can think about this forever, and it will just go on and on and on and on, and you might never ever get to the end of it, but I'm going to try and broach it in this video. So what do you do when you hate a female character? Okay, so you really, really hate a female character. You don't want to hate this female character because, you know, you just don't want to be that person. But it's because she's written badly. It's because she's written in a two-dimensional way. It's because she's a stereotype. It's because she's not showing any emotion. Now, what I hate is when the creators of the show, which have written a character in a blatantly sexist way and not written this character as a human being and not given her this realism, they then accuse those people who don't like the female character, and some people who like the show also accuse people who don't like that female character of being misogynistic or sexist, which is kind of confusing because you think, oh, wait, here I am, hating on a female character. Maybe I am misogynistic and sexist. But actually, it's way deeper than that, because it's like, you can't win. So often you'll get female characters in things which are absolutely shit. And I don't mean that the female characters themselves, if they were real people, would be shit. I just mean that there's clearly been no thought from the writers, usually male writers. They don't think about these people as human. They don't think about these women as real people. That comes across on screen. They come out like annoying, like cardboard cutouts, or they become plot devices, and it's just annoying. And you can't, no matter how hard you try, you just can't bond with that character. You can defend them on a level of, well, it's not their fault, it's the writer's fault, but you just can't bond with that character. That's where it's so weird, because then you get called the sexist, you get called the misogynist for not liking a character because she doesn't fulfill her potential, because she hasn't been given that realism. And it's so confusing, and you could argue about this forever. You might be someone on the other side of the argument here. You might be sitting here thinking, well, you're a misogynist because you don't like the female character, and then I'd respond to you by saying, but I think she's written really badly, and I think it's a sexist portrayal. It could go on forever, but it's just so annoying. Sometimes I find myself loving a female character, but not for who she actually is in the show, but for who she has the potential to be. And that's why I love being part of like online fandoms and writing fan fiction, because you can delve into these characters, especially the female characters, that don't often get their perspective shown on screen, and you can get that sort of love for them. So I've got a couple of characters from things, which in the show themselves, I'll be honest, they're rubbish. They're absolutely rubbish. But I love them for their potential and what could have been done with them. Another example I'll give to you here. I used to review Doctor Who. I'm not such a big Doctor Who fan anymore. I love the Rusty Davies era. I enjoy a lot of the classic era, but for me, Stephen Moffat ruined it. Sorry, Stephen. It's just not my cup of tea anymore. But I look forward to seeing what Chris Chibnall does next. But an example of this is Clara Oswald. Now, Clara Oswald is the 12th Doctor's companion and the 11th for a time, although I don't like to think about that time. She's excellently played by Jenna Coleman. I've got no complaints there. But the issue is that she's just not given depth on screen, in my opinion. She's not given that realism. A lot of these characters in Stephen Moffat's Doctor Who, the female characters, are very sort of, I'm pretty and sassy and there to sass the Doctor, but I won't actually show my pain or misery on screen. And I don't know, I feel like that's a really big mistake to make. For example, Amy Pond, who's one of my favourite Doctor Who companions actually, because in Series 5 I liked her a lot. There's a point in Doctor Who where she literally, her baby turns to like milky mush in her arms. And she loses her baby for many, many, many years. And she's not shown grieving for this baby or anything. There's a time in her storyline where she randomly wakes up and realises that all this time she's been pregnant and suddenly she's giving birth. And, like, yes, she screams in the episode, but that's all we get of her emotions on that. That makes me so, so angry, because it's not that I don't like the character, it's that I feel like the writing has let her down. So I still will forever love Amy Pond. I will love what Karen Gillan did with her. I love Clara Oswald for what she could have been. I love what Jenna Coleman tried to do with her, despite the awful writing. But I feel like they were really, really let down, so it's really conflicting in my mind, especially being a feminist, because people assume that if you're a feminist you should automatically like come to the defence of these female characters. But sometimes you just can't defend this stuff. Sometimes these female characters, you can't like them, and it's not your fault. It's because they are written in a sexist, misogynistic way. I feel like we need to come down harder on these writers, to be honest, when it comes to these characters. I don't mean we should go and like send them hate and go to their houses with like pitchforks and flaming torches. But what I mean is, instead of like aiming our anger at the characters, I feel like we need to go beyond that and get to the point where we say to ourselves, look, this female character could have been great, okay? and I'm not bonding with her, and I don't actually like her. That's all right. It's not that I don't like her because she's just like a character which I would dislike. I don't like her because she's a cardboard cutout. She's a stereotype. The writers have not done their job. We should get more used to being able to say that. That's not being anti-women or being anti-female characters. I think that's a brilliant thing to say. I think we should speak out when we think this sort of thing about female characters, because otherwise we get caught forever in that cycle where if you complain about the female character, you're called the sexist and nothing ever changes. Now, of course, there are going to be female characters that you don't like, that we don't like, that I don't like. And sometimes that can be a mark of a good female character. Sometimes it's because they've been written in a human way and you just do not like their personality. That's a healthy way to dislike a female character. I actually think that's fantastic. Like, I watch a lot of soaps and there are some characters in these soaps which are written very well. I just don't like them, and it's because they're real and I don't like those personality traits. There's nothing wrong with that. I also feel like I should say, fandoms in general get a lot of stick for being sexist, and there is sexism in fandom because there's sexism in society, and fandoms are just people from society who like the same thing. Yes, there is sexism in fandom, of course there is, but I feel like sometimes I see these posts on Tumblr or online about how female characters are being slept on, they're, not being appreciated compared to the male characters, but actually, when I think about it sometimes, I find myself doing the same thing, and I don't think it is sexism there. I think it's a case of there's a male writer of the show and the male writer has written their male characters in a believable way so people can relate to them and like them and empathise with them. But they haven't bothered to do that for their female characters, so because they've not done that, the audience hasn't bonded with the female character. Does that make the audience sexist for, responding to that sort of writing? I don't think it does, so I think we have to be careful before we start saying, oh, so-and-so fandom is sexist because it doesn't appreciate their female characters. If the show itself doesn't appreciate the female characters, then that's not the fandom's fault. Although you would hope that those people would get to a point, like I have in lots of fandoms, where they realise, okay, this female character is written appallingly, and she deserves much better. There are some female characters I simultaneously love and hate. Like, on my blog, sometimes I'll reblog a person, and it's like, do you know what, I hate you on the show, I hate the way you're written, but I love my version of you. I love the version of you in my head where you're actually fleshed out and your potential. So it's really confusing. Oh, it's confusing being a feminist. It really is. Okay, I love you loads. If you can relate to this in any way, then respond in the comment section. Tell me, what experiences have you had in terms of this? What are those female characters that you've had those journeys with? Do you struggle with this, or do you think I'm just making a huge deal out of nothing? Is this just me going off on one? Okay, also, just letting you know, I have a PayPal donate button now, so if you want to contribute to videos, that sort of thing, you can donate, no pressure whatsoever. It's just a new feature, so I'm letting you know about it. It's in the description box, okay? Love you loads. I'll see you really soon. Bye!